Hey everybody, I'm here with my friend Tory. She is a first-year gardener and
Newbie.
You're new.
Real new.
And I just want to talk to her a little bit about how her experience went and if it was worth it. Like, did she even like it? Like, what were her takeaways? Like, all the things about gardening that we sometimes get really scared about and in our head, like, oh, a garden's too much work. A garden isn't.
It's like too expensive. It's too like richy, bougie. Yeah. I had all those things.
And what if I don't do it right?
And what if I kill all the things? Yeah, absolutely.
What if I kill all the things that I actually
death.
care about?
Totally.
Yes.
Yes. Very excited.
So, gonna talk to Tory about that, and hopefully you'll have a few takeaways, and maybe you'll want to go garden yourself.
Come on in. It's a good club.
Plant your first seed.
Oh,
That's all we really want.
See what you did there.
Okay, so Tory.
Yes.
On this adventure, when I first met you, you were like, "I'm fucking scared to garden."
100%.
Like, and I was like, "What?"
I feel like if you don't speak the language of the gardeners, you don't know what you're saying. Like, you guys talk very like, oh, the water meter level and the dirt and the soil and the acidity and like, I don't know any of those words. So it was a very big mountain to climb and I didn't know how to start. And to be super honest, it's very Martha Stewart bougie. And I'm not like a bougie person, so I was very unsure that I could do it.
Look at you gardening in the runway here.
It's what I do, babe.
Kidding.
It's what I do.
TV. It's okay.
It's what I do.
But yes, the first time that I came over here, you were like, "Can I take this plant out of the garden?" Like literally basic.
No one ever gives you ABCs.
Yes.
No one ever says this is a weed and this isn't. You're supposed to just like no.
No.
And I don't think that is very conducive to a new person because I don't know anything. I didn't know anything, and I think there's a lot of terms.
Yeah, like soil,
stems, like buds. Like I just was really like a kindergartner on this. So, and no one's ever talks about gardening like that, so I appreciated it.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, put your foot on the shovel,
and
like literally just do it. Let's chop down this tree.
And we did.
Okay, so.
And we did.
And you like.
I flourished.
You flourished.
I became my hobby. It saved me during the pandemic. It changed my life. 1,000%. Brought me closer to my family. Brought me closer to my dead ancestors. It changed my life completely.
Just the garden.
One season, and you visited how many times? 4?
I think so. 3 or 4.
3 or 4, and completely changed my life.
Like that.
I know.
But I think a garden can do that. I think that's what a garden can do, and it doesn't have to be a 2-acre
I don't have that
space, right? Like it was a very small space, really. The first thing we planted was actually over the phone, and I taught you how to plant carrots seeds.
Seriously. And you were like, make a trench with your finger, and I'm like, what's a trench? But like it was that basic. And then fast forward to today, I dropped off my carrot cake at the office that I grew from my own garden from you because of you.
Yes.
And then I learned how to bake. So like it really transferred. But I will tell you, if you're nervous, this is a good spot for you to learn how not to be nervous, because this is the ABCs. ABCs of getting over your fear, because it's a very intimidating. I understand that.
Yeah, and that a small thing, like it doesn't have to be complicated.
Correct.
It's literally like the soil and the water and the seed will do the work for you.
Totally.
If you give it semi-right conditions, right?
Right.
Like, and the sun.
And you learn the basics. You get the terms down. It's like learning a new language. I'm like, now I feel competent.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
not,
so,
though.
okay, well, what was your favorite part? Like, what was your favorite, like, did you sing to your plants?
So, my family has this tradition of when they think the plant is thirsty, they go, I need water. And I was always like, that's so weird. But I did anthropomorphize some of them. But I also,
I love that word.
It's like I made them persons or people. But I got very protective. So if there was a Japanese beetle, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. Yeah. And I became like very mothering almost. Yeah. And I had to actually be quiet because I'm surrounded by children, but I would get very protective. But I do need to learn how to sing more.
Well, I don't sing. Maybe I do. I'm like...
You talk.
I do talk to them. I'm like, hello, baby. Are you doing okay?
Yeah,
do you want some water? Like, do you want some compost? Like, what are you feeling like? What do you need? Like, you look so pretty today. Oh my God. You smell
nice.
so good.
You look good, girl. That's the best thing. So I think if you communicate.
Yeah.
And I think at first I was very nervous because the plants themselves like intimidated me. And you helped me find plants that I became friends with, which was all about like finding the right colors and things for me. So like find plants that you actually enjoy. Like I wanted bright colors, and you totally not only helped me with that, that sustained me throughout.
Yeah, and it's like you don't have to do what everybody else
you can
wants
do
to do. Like whatever you feel drawn to.
Yeah.
Like, let's figure it out. Were there any like really like snotty plants, like high maintenance? Ugh.
And you know what's so sad is that it was the one plant I wanted the most. I like those like feather grasses. Oh my God. It would keep turning yellow and all that. And at one point you just said, I had 3 of them and I was like, they're turning yellow. And I would stay up at night being like, how do I do this? Is it over water? And you just said, just cut one down, see if it helps. And that freedom was very helpful. I always feel like in gardening, like if you take one step off, you're going to ruin the whole thing. And I'm going to kill all the plants. And I think a lot of people feel like that, but you were just like, try it, see if it comes up next year. And that was very freeing.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I've learned in my garden experience is like, don't be afraid to experiment.
Oh,
like,
that's scary.
The garden is forgiving in some cases, and guess what? Then you're gonna have next year.
Totally.
Like it's never like, oh,
it's over.
It's over.
It felt like that hole in Game of Thrones that like she pushes you through and you just like die. And I think that you're like, no, it's just gonna be. You can try and get. What a good metaphor for life too, because it's like it's gonna just work. Some will work, some won't. But you don't have to be so scared. I think people are scared of killing the plant. That's a very like harsh way.
Well, it's like a kid, like your baby.
Yeah, it's like we really, and then you're like, did I waste the money? Am I not good enough? And so there's all this like weird stuff with it, but
psychological.
Yeah, but also feeding yourself is also like really empowering. So that really helps.
Well, and that's what I was gonna ask is, due to COVID, I think we've all been like, whoa, a real reality shock of where does our food come from? And is it like it's been a reliable source for most of us for a long time, except for, I mean, we go back to like the Great Depression maybe was a time. I mean, not all of us have food security. That's another
100%
whole issue, right? But it kind of was like a shock, like we are not self-sustaining people.
Correct.
Like we rely so much on our farmers, on that whole system that we don't even know how to dig in the soil. I mean, I'm just saying it.
For real.
We don't know where our food comes from. Somebody asked me, I asked them where avocado came from, and they were like, like from, is it like a trailing? I was like, comes from a tree. Which is fine because we don't
talk about it.
We don't talk about it. They say that kids actually know more logos of like franchises than they do more, they can name a tree, which also goes for me.
Wow, that's really sad because no one normalizes just to talk about it. The COVID normalized sustainable eating and making food. All of a sudden I'm like, oh, are we really doing this? Like it's an apocalypse and we need to grow our own food. And then I'm like, oh no, we are. We totally are.
We're fighting over toilet paper.
Yeah. And I was like, I kind of just did it as like, oh, just in case, like carrots, whatever. But like there is a sense of like
just in case I have carrots.
Like, dude, you taught me that purslane vines are edible. I like that's empowering.
That is empowering.
Seriously.
And not only that, I feel like it gives us a different connection to our world and nature and a responsibility to take care of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Like it's not just
it microed you down to that level.
Yeah. We are here to take care of it, but it takes care of us in return.
I will say there's a saying that someone once said to me that I always think about, that they have a hard time communicating with God and finding God. But they said when they pick fruit off of a tree, it's like and eat it without doing anything else, they can like feel God. Because like how could something like grow like that? I can just take it and eat it and it sustains me. Yeah, it's a very interesting spiritual thing. So it does get kind of like, ooh.
But I think that's how I feel connected to source, to God, to whatever vibration that keeps us sustained, right? Like that keeps us here.
Yeah, and I will tell you that when I was deep into like the gardening, I did go somewhere that's very meditative. Yeah. Like when I was like, I didn't think I'd go there, but it was very, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say spiritual, but very, it's just very calming.
Yeah, you're grounded, right? Like
for real.
They say it really is grounding to be in the ground. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in our world, like our phones are super persuasive, right? We know that. the TV, everything else we could be doing inside. But I think the moment I step outside and I just look at a tree or look at the greenery, I feel better. But I have to like consciously make myself go outside and be like, frick, Rebecca, like take care of yourself and go outside. And I think I always end up feeling better.
Yeah.
Being in nature. Like, I don't know that there's time that I was like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah. Dang trees. How could I? But I also think that when you get a plant, it's like getting a dog. I got a dog because I had depression. I had to go outside. I wouldn't get outside. So I got a dog, so I had to take a walk. I got the plant, so I had to come outside. And like, if you care about the plants, that'll be your motivation. Like, I was like, I can't believe there's a zucchini. Like, there were raspberries growing from it's insane, and you're like fascinated by it. So that kept me going outside.
Okay, wait. Did we go back? Did you have a high maintenance? Oh no, it was you said your high maintenance was your grasses.
I know, that's so embarrassing, but I can't get it done. And then I walk around and I see other people's grasses, and I'm like, well, I get right. Oh. It comes back to like, well, it's just let it go. It's your own.
We can retry, right?
Right.
Like,
that's
retry a different spot.
Cut it and it'll grow.
We'll like maybe it'll come back next year.
How sad it's just grass. I can't figure it out. It's so sad.
Maybe it's the wrong kind of grass.
I know.
What was your like literally your favorite thing that you just were like, man, this is making my heart swell right now just looking at you grow?
Blue hydrangeas. The hydrangeas. I got 3 and I was obsessed with them, and I still am. And I really want to rip out, and she won't let me, everything and just put in blue hydrangeas. Yeah. I want a whole like Cape Cod of just like blue hydrangeas. I love the way they grow. I love the way the leaves are. I love learning about them. I learned to dry them. I dried some. I also did how to water bath them. I got like deep into the hydrangea world, and all of that came from because I like the color. So like find something that really interests you, right? Like the shape or what it gives you. Like for me, I love that color, so that made me more intensely attuned to it. But that was by far my favorite.
That's awesome. What about food? So I think the other part is like if you love cucumbers, there's nothing like a fresh cucumber off of the vine.
Magic.
Or tomatoes.
Oh,
like a garden tomato is something totally special, and honestly they are so good at growing on their own if you give them like semi right conditions and water them, and they're delicious. So I think that we also, one of the things we negate is the power of just planting a few plants.
like it's not a farm.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a freaking farm.
Right.
We don't have to start a CSA. Like it doesn't have to be something crazy.
Right.
It's just, okay, let's say you got 5 zucchinis this summer. And let's say the rest of it, let's say 200 people watch this video and they also plant a zucchini plant and they get 5. Like I don't know how to do math very well, but
seems like a lot.
It seems like a lot, right? Like
1,000 or something.
That is the fewer trucks that had to take our food to the stores, pack them up, do all the things when we just had to go out back and pick them out.
Totally true.
And that it matters over time, right? Like every little thing that you plant matters. The less that we waste, hopefully. And I feel like I do throw away some of my garden stuff that it just goes bad, but I think on average I waste less of my own things I grow than what I go get from the grocery store.
Because you care so much more.
Yeah, it's I grew this thing, it tastes better, like we better eat it. Because waste is a big deal, especially in the US, us throwing away so much food. And yes, so where I was going with that is that it matters, just even one little seed. What was the thing I was going to ask you? Let me get back to that.
So true. Plant a seed, let it grow.
Just plant a seed and let it grow. Let it grow.
Let it grow.
Let it
yeah.
grow.
But I never, and also like if you don't think you're the gardening type, let that go too. Because there was a big thing with me of like,
you have to wear overalls.
Yeah,
and like you have to be like crunchy
freckled,
a little bit,
and like you have to have like mason jars and lavender and stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't have any of that. And so there was a typecast of I felt.
And if I have a garden, is that what people think they think I am, or I have to be that? What an interesting.
There's a sense of hierarchy of like the gardener, which is really interesting. But you also get a sense of hierarchy because when you start to pick your own vegetables, you realize you've forgotten all about the actual agricultural workers who are out there. It's a very mind twisting. It's very interesting. Deep.
Yeah. So. But that was the other thing that I talked to you about today is that the way that we are farming in the U.S. And worldwide is not sustainable. We are getting rid of lots of topsoil, and it's forecasted to be in the next 27 years we don't have enough topsoil to actually farm enough food that we need to feed people, which is unreal to even think about. And it's because nature cannot create soil fast enough at the rate that we're using it.
Wow.
And so if each of us start a small garden, that will keep us on the road to like recovery. Like if we all learned how to use technology in the last 20 years, we can all learn how to garden in the next 20 years. And it starts by small steps. And it probably is taking away those typecasting, like you said, like those kinds of things. Like everyone needs to know how to garden and everyone should have access to gardening because it's how we sustain ourselves.
Yeah, it's interesting when you always see those futuristic movies, they're always growing their own stuff because that's how it has to be in the end. And it's catch up with the future. And I really think too, what you said was great. Get a packet of seeds, and then get a tiny pot and do it in like the tiny little corner. Like just try it. There's nothing. It's like watercolor. Just mess around with it. I thought it had to be so precise, or else like I'd ruin it. And there was nothing like that.
Yeah. So like what were the easiest things for you to grow? Like
veggies for sure.
Carrots, zucchini.
The geraniums were easy.
Geraniums,
you know,
like to eat.
Okay,
like
for sure. The string beans.
String beans. Oh yeah, they're bush beans. So they weren't even the ones that trellis. They were just like a bush.
It was great, and then I would just pick them off, feed them to the dogs. I loved picking berries. I thought that was just such a meditatively, like Twilight would come and I'd go over there and have my headphones on and pick berries, and it was like so Pinterest ready. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It felt really good.
And it's so like, but it literally is magic.
Yeah, it
like,
felt really good.
Magic in your backyard, and like that's accessible to you.
Right.
Or go buy a plant already existing, right? Like go buy a raspberry plant, go buy a tomato plant. Like I don't do my tomatoes from seed.
Yeah, just enjoy it. Yeah, you don't have to.
No, I go buy something and later on maybe put a seed. But the seeds, we did carrot seeds. That is pretty easy.
Carrot seeds so easy. String beans super easy.
Yeah.
Sunflower seeds super easy. The zucchini
was from
you, and you transferred it over and it flourished.
It did.
And there's a sense of accomplishment when you eat your own food. That's like very empowering too, because you feel like when you eat a tomato from your garden, like aren't you a Mediterranean like fisherman and you're out to sea and like, you know what I mean? There's special like olives. It's just very, very empowering. But I also think people are concerned about like the expense of how do I get the pots? How do I get the soils? And there's a lot of workarounds, because you and I were like, the first thing was like pick a similar color for all your pots. So we found like cream, which was like inexpensive. That made sense. Get all cream. So there's little tips that you gave me that I don't think I would have known without your guru-ness.
Well, and first of all, I think people get rid of pots all the time on Craigslist or
next door.
100%. You can spray paint those pots.
Yeah.
You can do all sorts of things. So pots are expensive, but they will last you.
And you can find them.
But you can find them.
Yeah.
But also, you can plant in most cases, you can rip up a piece of lawn. You can plant in a very small area. Lots of things. Like if you have a 2 by 2 foot area, you can plant a zucchini.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like I never would have thought that.
You could, and a zucchini will literally give you, usually unimaginable amounts of zucchini.
I have so many zucchinis.
You will share them with your neighbors.
Too many zucchinis.
Too many.
There's a lot of zucchini.
Too many. You're gonna have a lot of zucchini noodles or whatever. Yeah. What else? Okay, so but the beans don't take up much space, so you can literally have a 5 by 5 foot space that you can plant a lot of stuff in.
Totally. And it's every day. It's so much fun to come back and see what else grew.
And you're like, oh my God,
it's this big? Yeah, totally. I don't know why, but it feels like you're in science fair at like 7th grade.
Yes.
It's very exciting.
Yes. Another really fun one, and I know you don't really like lettuce that much, but
I hate lettuce.
Lettuce is so fun to see this little baby lettuce.
I can't with that. But I know that another thing is that I thought every gardener had to plant lettuce or in like a raised bed. And I was like, again, I never thought of like, well, what do I want on a salad? Or what do I, start
like,
from what you want.
Eat.
Yeah.
Start with what do I eat and what could I supplement? And usually those might be actually semi-easy things to actually grow wherever you're at.
Totally.
Yeah, beets, lettuce, carrots,
zucchinis, the beans. I thought it was so crazy. I would take the carrot and out of the ground came a carrot.
an actual carrot.
It's so cool.
It is so cool because, again, when do we see that?
Ever. And you have to slow down and be patient. I'm not good with being patient. You have to be patient enough to let the carrot grow too. It just teaches you a lot about life.
Yeah, because we go to the store, it's packaged up for us. We grab it, we go, and we forget how long that carrot took to grow because you started that carrot.
Like beginning of summer?
Was it March?
Yeah. April?
Was it April?
Yeah, because my dog was sick and we were doing it then in April.
So April to September, you had to wait.
Yeah.
And water.
And it was exciting.
And it was exciting. And it wasn't also, I hope that, yes, you have to think about your garden, but it wasn't like labor intensive.
You're absolutely right. It wasn't like, oh no. It was like, oh, I get to daydream. As opposed to like, oh no, I'm going to worry about it.
Yeah. And of course, if you have a sprinkler system attached to it, it makes it twice as easy for sure. But there is something to watering your garden that is just sort of like,
so nice.
Hi, little babies. I'm out in nature before I go to work, and I love you, and I'll see you when I get home.
Especially during COVID, when everybody's like worried about getting sick, and it's like you get to take care of something and keep it healthy, and you're in charge of it, and it's incredibly workable.
Yeah.
For COVID. For some reason, gardening and COVID
meshed.
Totally.
But you know what's funny is, okay, so I've gardened for, okay, how old is my daughter? She's two, okay, I've been gardening for 9 years.
Wow.
Like real gardening, you know? And just this year, for the first time, I grew onions.
Really? I want to grow onions. How was it? Good?
It was amazing.
Yeah, I want to.
Because I was like, it's going to take up too much space in the garden. I don't really care. I can go to the store and buy them for really cheap.
Right.
But they are the best onions that I've had, which it's kind of weird to say, but like, I can just go to my garden and we need an onion for dinner. Go get one.
I mean, think about this. There's a reason Oprah, who's the richest person on earth, basically, all she does when you go on Instagram is all she does is garden. And if she could afford to buy anything, obviously, but it's the thrill of the gardening, of getting it out of the ground.
There's a freaking thrill. And, okay, remember that summer that we got a horrible hail and flooding?
Yeah.
You're like, yes, I know. I was stuck in traffic, and I'm sitting there in tears because I know what it's doing to my garden. Like, it literally pains me right now.
I know. We had a frost, and I covered them all with blankets. I never thought I'd be that person.
And that's the other, but going back to your point of like, who is that person?
Yeah.
Well, everyone likes to eat food.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's such a good point.
Like, you don't have to be a certain person. Like, everybody can garden, and everyone, I don't want to say should.
Right.
But everyone should garden.
It's sort of medication. I mean, it's helpful. Yeah.
I think it's one of the top ways to probably combat depression or anxiety, just being out in nature, period. But there's something about like hands in soil.
Totally. Like feeling the earth.
And watching something miraculous.
Totally.
Like, it's like, okay, if you've ever been there when a baby's born, that's miraculous. Like, that is a freaking miracle. Like, there is a human being coming out. Like, anything being born. But then even watching something grow from a tiny, tiny, tiny seed into food that you can eat is miraculous to me.
I agree. And especially in this day and age in which I feel like we are bombarded with bad news, it just clicks your other part of your brain to start thinking that way, like meditatively. Yeah. Okay,
so if you had any advice for a another noob,
like, hire you.
Oh, you're sweet. Of course I like that. But if they don't have a me, or like, where do they start? Like we talked about, like, okay, just get a pot with some soil. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, those people at the garden centers, they love and I can't say they all love
talking. Because sometimes they're little. Here's what I did. I found a Facebook group called, and it was like, I just kind of randomly found it, but they, to me, were a little warmer. And no disrespect to any garden store employees watching. No shade, pun intended. But I will say that I was intimidated to talk to the gardener people because I felt like I should know more that I didn't. But on Facebook, a lot of older people who are experienced want to give advice. So I would say my number one advice is get on it's free. Yeah. And I ask so many questions. I'm like, do I cut it at the bottom? Do I cut it out here? And I get like 68 free responses within an hour. So find yourself a Facebook forum on gardening that's in your zone. I didn't even know about zones, but it really, really helps me get advice. And so then it's free again. Facebook, easy.
Yeah, and I think those are the important, like you learned that there's zones and different growing areas. Like, you'll learn along the way, and it's okay not to know. And I think that, again, another life lesson, like, it's okay to ask for help, because most people actually, not all, want to help and want to like answer your question and want to be knowledgeable and pass on their what they know.
Especially because it's gardening. Isn't that such a like a passed down generational, like ancestral thing of like the knowledge of the ground and the earth and how to sustain it? But if you are like me and the garden store, but by the way, let's just call it out. Garden stores are also very busy, and I'm an anxious person, and if you're kind of got ADD, they're really small aisles. You don't know what like a perennial is. Like, take your time, go with a friend. But like,
get a buddy.
It's not easy, that part. That part's really nerve-wracking. So another piece of advice maybe is just to like go with someone that is more experienced, because I was way overwhelmed, and that would have stopped me from continuing the gardening process. Like, that would have been an obstacle that I couldn't continue. But because I had you I was like, help.
You were like, find me. Where are you?
So I was like, I'm by the hats. But I think it's, and you've got a cart, there's a lot of like things, and they're hanging, and so go with someone who's a little more calmer than you, and then that now I can
who've been there before, like, oh, this is what this is sort of what,
right.
I think that you're totally right. Okay, so I love that advice. Like, get a Facebook group. There's tons out there, like permaculture, gardening, whatever you want to look
like
up, veggie garden, and get a buddy. And if you need a buddy, DM us.
Totally. We want to be your buddy.
We want to be your garden buddy. Otherwise, okay, so that's two different things you said.
Yeah.
And
I guess the only other thing I would say too is, like, I watch a lot of, I know this sounds super trendy, but there's some really good YouTube videos. And
oh yeah, like YouTube has everything.
Yeah, and to be honest, that overwhelmed me because there's like almost so much. So I found a gardening site that I trusted called My Gardener, M.I. Gardener. I think it's from Michigan. Who knows? But I follow this guy like he is a god. And because I don't have to go to 18 different sites, I trust this one dude. Don't get overwhelmed by the amount of people trying to teach you how to do it. Find someone you like their rhythm, you like their style, and sort of stick with it. Because otherwise it's like, there's 18 people telling you about tulips, and I'm like, that's a lot. Too many people.
And then you're almost like, well, what do I do?
Then there's no answer. Yeah. There's too many answers.
Okay, I love that.
So be specific on like who you trust, go with a buddy, Facebook forum, and then podcasts even. Like, I just really like information. I just really liked basic information. So the more you can kind of ground yourself with that kind of knowledge.
Maybe be okay with failing.
God, that's hard, isn't it? So I killed a rose bush, and I'm still like thinking about it, but you're absolutely right. Be flexible.
Be flexible. Be okay with, well, it takes us back to the death life cycles, right?
Yeah, because when you say killing a plant, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a big deal to a lot of people because they don't even feel accomplished doing anything, and if they kill a plant, they feel worse about themselves.
Well, like, I think about house plants, right? Like, so many people don't have house. They're like, oh no, I just kill plants.
I'm a black thumb. Yeah. And there's a real fear of like killing something, I think. You know what I'm saying?
Because we don't have to kill our animal. We don't have to kill our meat. We don't have to like sugar. Like,
you're absolutely right. That's
we
a
don't
great
have
point.
to.
There's nothing we kill.
So separated from that.
Such a good point.
We don't have to.
Such a good point.
So maybe get acquainted with that part of you, and it's probably a good practice for all of us.
I think that's a really fair point, and I think that's why some people don't psychologically want to start.
Well, it just sucks to kill something, right? But when the opposite happens and it thrives and it flourishes and it feeds you, that's where the magic is.
Totally agree.
That's where the spark lights up in you, and it's like life.
Yeah, totally agree.
Like, that makes me like
feel something.
Yeah.
Chills.
Yeah. Like, this year was not the best year for my garden because it was neglected and I was in the middle of a lot of other things. And I feel like there's a sense of me that was just so dulled and like, I'm so sad. But this year, I'm already starting to like prep my garden outside and like, I'm like, how is it going to be next year? And I'm going to have so much time for you. I'm going to just spend all this time. I'm actually making my garden like twice as big because...
And you're redoing things. I mean, you're reorganizing.
Yeah, like I literally am like tearing up lawn and like the whole thing's gonna be just garden. But I'm planting perennials, which perennials will come back the next year.
Didn't know that.
Which is an awesome.
Always scared to ask that.
Yeah. Well, an annual to me actually sounds like,
that's
it should
what
come
I
back
thought.
annually.
Right, that's what I thought.
But it means that it only is annual.
Right. Which I still have trouble with, but yes.
Yeah, so the perennials are great because it just keeps giving. And they just come back. Not always, like sometimes they don't last the winter for whatever reason, but I want to plant a lot of perennials that just keep giving.
Yeah.
And as long as you sort of like give them some compost, some nutrients, they're going to be happy and hopefully a little more self-sustaining on my end, right?
I think so too.
For my,
because I think if you neglect your garden, and this is going to sound super hippie and deep, you're sort of definitely, there's like a part of you
yes,
that kind of you're neglecting.
100%. That's
which
how
sounds
I felt.
really like hippy dippy, but I do think that says a lot about, yeah, that makes sense.
I feel like there's this part that I wasn't nurturing, and that was me being outside with God.
There you go. Wow, full circle. Well said. Well said. Amen. Well said. That was good.
So, I don't know what else I got.
Should I do worst part? Just ask worst part.
Yeah. Like,
what do you think? Or is that stupid to
no,
do?
I think that like, oh, I had something else.
Yeah. I can't believe you saw a mouse. So upset.
It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I know. Kind of.
Well, like, what was the coolest thing that you saw? Like, what were you like? Oh my God, I can't believe this is even possible.
The carrot coming out of the ground. That's so weird because it's like bright and orange.
Yeah.
It's so weird. And another one was, for a year I thought those flowers over there were like flowers, like vines. But then I saw something red growing and it was a berry, and I was like, blew my mind. Yeah,
this is
really,
food.
Yeah, I think so. I think the idea of sustaining yourself was like that I could be in charge of that was very mind blowing because no one talks about it in terms of the details, and it was like. It also just led me into other things. Like the zucchini led me into baking zucchini loaves. And like, I just feel like it opened up a different part of my life. It also, for anyone who's depressed, gets you outside. And that's a big deal. Like sunlight, vitamin D, space. If you're depressed, you tend to like hole up, and gardening tends to like push you out.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. Like I had to physically be outside.
And you don't necessarily have to talk to people.
100%. It doesn't take away. It doesn't
Yes.
It doesn't deplete your social
Yes.
way. You can just be with yourself.
You can be with yourself, and
point.
the plants aren't going to talk back.
Totally.
Like
Totally
they're
good
just
point.
going to kind of like do their plant medicine thing. Like,
Yeah.
I do plant brushings with like around people's energetic fields and all
Yeah.
those things, but I do think that that's the same. Like when we're around nature, they energetically give us medicine, and that is super hippy dippy. But that's what I am. But they energetically give us a different vibration.
Yeah.
Than being in our house full of like electronics and around other things. Like it really, really does. What was the like thing that you dreaded? Like, did you dread anything or like doing anything, or was there something that you were like, I hate this part of gardening?
I'm not good, and I'll be honest with you. Like right now, I got my carrots out. I harvested them. I pulled them. That's how basic it is. And now I have that opening, and like I tend to spend a lot of time thinking about like what I should plant instead of like, and then it paralyzes me from doing anything. So right now I have that open little like tiny little thing, and instead of just like enjoying being curious and planting, I get stuck with what I should do. And that is, or am I doing it right? That's my big thing. And I compare myself to other gardeners, and I think, oh, if I had just had more acidity, and then I kind of get anxious about it. So the more I do it, the less worry I think on that. But starting new with a new plant is very intimidating. Like right now I'm like, I have nothing to plant, and I'm going to spend 2 days thinking about it.
Well, that's something we can talk about.
A bird. Okay,
Little
so
birdie just wanted to be a part of this. Which is a work in progress, right? But the growing season is coming to an end.
Oh, so I'm done?
Yeah.
So what do you do fall, winter for gardening? You go inside? Oh my God, I sound like...
No,
But, like,
don't.
do you continue?
No. I don't really. I
So
start
you-
to put my beds to rest.
Oh, wow.
Or you can start to plant like other bulbs that will come alive in the spring.
I see. So now is the time of rest.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's also, I think, we naturally start to feel that in our own
Yeah,
selves, right?
hibernation.
Like, hibernation starts. We feel a little cozier. We start to go inward more,
Mhm.
maybe thinking about the house a little bit more, and yeah, like slowing down, reading
Mhm.
some books, like chilling out. That is a natural rhythm in the cycles of life because those beds need to rest. What you could do is create some kind of cold frame, I have old windows that I'm going to create into a.
See, that sounds like out of, like, I could never do that.
Okay, but I'm 9 years in.
Okay, that's fair. Good point.
Think about that.
Forgive
Like,
yourself.
I'm
You're
like,
right. You're totally fair.
I'm on. This is on.
You're
my
in window
process.
frame level.
I'm in. That's
Yeah,
on
yeah.
my. That's on my next step.
Good call.
I'm leveling up. To
Nice.
it.
So what are you going to do with them?
I'm gonna put them next to either my house, which will keep them a little bit warmer too, and they're gonna be. So you can open the window and then it'll keep it warm.
Oh, that's
So
so
hopefully I can grow
cute.
some lettuce or
Wow.
like some kind of cold crop, maybe
Wow.
some beets. Like I don't know.
Wow.
I'm gonna have to get on my garden group and find out.
That's exciting. And then my first thought is, oh God, I should have already known that. And then the second thought is immediately though, let it grow, let it blossom.
Yes.
And so it's teaching me about life. So that's
And-
because I compete a lot with people.
Yeah, and okay, you know what's really funny is I've never competed. Like I am competitive. But one year, I think it was because we had just moved into a house and my garden was just like not where I wanted. It was sort of like, oh man, I had built up this garden at this other house and it was just flourishing. Everyone was like, oh, your garden's so beautiful, blah, 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 blah. All this praise like we had been talking about. And then I moved to this new house and the soil's not optimal. The space, I don't know the space. Like
You know,
I don't
the sun,
know,
the shading.
I don't know
all
where
that.
the sun goes. I
Right.
don't know all the great places. And it wasn't optimal. And I was envying my own old garden
Whoa, now that's
to that
deep.
garden. And I felt like I was
I
like,
get that.
I'm literally mad at my garden.
I feel that. I felt that. That
Yeah.
that shooketh me. I totally get that. If you're like, and then all you do is look down and resent that new garden.
And that garden felt that vibration.
Right, and then it didn't. Right.
Yeah, it's like, fuck you.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to grow if you're not
Right, you don't
like,
care?
Yeah, if you don't love me, fine. I'll show you that I'm not going to be this. So there's really something so weird about that. And so I had to literally shift my thinking into it, like a thankfulness, like, thank you, garden, for growing. And I am happier here. And I'm glad that you're even growing how you are in this soil that you're maybe is not optimal, right? And I'm sorry.
I think that's
But that's
beautiful.
me talking to my garden.
But that's beautiful. I mean, that's a good lesson.
But I literally had to be like, oh my God, I'm envying my old garden, like
Yeah.
my own stuff.
it sounds insane, but I totally feel that. Totally.
But it could have been somebody else's garden at the same time or whatever. But being okay with it just being as is, like, just that they're feeding us.
Yes.
For goodness sakes. Yeah, anything else you want to add?
I'll say this. They said in my Buddhist teacher, which also sounds hippie, says usually people.
We can be hippie here.
Okay, good. Okay, yay. That there's like usually like ground, water, earth, air, fire, and everything, right? But Americans, especially the Westerners, always want ground underneath their feet. Like all they want to know is that the next step is going to be safe and the next step is going to be safe. And the trick to Buddhism, and I think in gardening a little bit, is like there never is going to be the ground. You'll never know. There'll never be a day where you're like, I'm sure this will happen.
There is no
There'll
certain.
never be a harvest.
Yeah.
There'll never be a seed. And the quicker, which is so hard, you get that into your head, the less the better you suffer. You suffer in a better way, right? That's so hard to do. But if anything can teach you, I would think it's gardening.
Be certain that there will be an uncertainty.
That's so hard. Yeah, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's not easy, and I can do it for 2.5 seconds. But last year I could only do it for 1.5 seconds. But it's very much like even if you want your garden to come out a very certain way, and you want your onions, and a fox comes and eats everything,
yes.
it's like.
I don't think the fox will actually.
I don't know if foxes even eat onions. If they do that,
I don't. I don't. I think they mostly like eat your
who
dog.
eats onions?
Well, my freaking pill bug or roly polies did.
Oh.
Little bastard.
Oh, anger towards the insects.
I know. I'm sorry. I do. I get like where you were like.
I get that way.
All those
The
freaking
Japanese
beetles.
beetles.
I was like, don't you dare get on my rhubarb.
Yeah, they're gonna get protective.
Yes. So Buddhism. We're talking about all of this. But I do think that there's no certainty that your garden, or we don't know when a frost is going to come.
Yeah, remember we just had one. That's right.
And it's just sort of like rolling with the punches
Yeah.
and seeing, it's like, I'm just going to be here for you, plants.
Yeah.
So anyways, I don't know. I think that was all I have for our garden, adventures.
And I think the main thing I say, if you're new and you're scared, do it anyway.
Do it anyway.
Do it anyway.
Just do it.
Just do it. Just get dirty and mess it up. And I said that, I know everyone says that to you, but like,
yeah,
just do it.
Just do it. Don't let your dreams, hold on, what does Shia LaBeouf say?
Oh, Shia.
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Oh, God.
Don't let your dreams just be dreams. Make it a reality.
Shia.
Well, you know what? I like his like just do it motivational.
No, I do
like,
too. I do
just do it.
Just get in there and start with something small, even if it's a packet from Amazon. Oh, even if it's a wildflower like bomb that you can throw out. Yeah, just try it and see what it changes within you.
So what are you gonna try next?
What are you gonna try? What's in your wallet?
You can't use that one.
Okay.